Today, we're talking about managing marketing teams. And we're going to be talking about everything around this area. We're going to be talking about how do you get these teams together? What is the purpose of the teams? Who are the individuals? What is the team all about? What we're trying to do? How we're trying to get there? We're going to cover a kind of lot of areas here. A gentleman called Mintzberg writes a lot about management, all right? And there are kind of 10 key roles. And if you are in already organizations where you are already a manager of teams, or eventually going to manage teams, or indeed you're starting your own business even, look at the kind of, the person who you are. And the exercise that I would do for all of you is kind of look in the mirror and just have a look at these 10 points that Mintzberg puts together here as well. Now this is at a management level, not a leadership level, but a management level. When you look in the mirror in the morning when you get up at work, all right? When you get up going to work rather, there's a number of different things that you may be thinking. Mintzberg puts it down into 3 key kind of roles. But the first thing is around kind of, a figurehead. Yeah? Is that person, in charge? Is that person actually the manager? Yeah. It goes to leader. Even when you're a manager, you're looking at that kind of leadership quality. What's the difference between you and everyone else who's in the team right now? Because all of you will have a functional role to play. The question is, when you are leading the team, what are you actually leading about? What is it about you? Is it charisma? Is it charm? Is it inspiration? Is it knowledge that you have that needs to be respected? Is it the way you do things? Is it how you do things? Is it kind of why you do things? What do you challenge? Do you just accept the status quo? Or do you actually do this quo challenger thing? No, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. And you've got the gumption, you've got the evidence behind you to actually go out and actually try and do your thing. All right? Try and do and be something a little different. Liaison, that's a key role. It's actually a key role generally when you look at interfunctions within departments, that kind of liaison. Liaison of the people that you work with and liaison of the inter-departments that you collaborate across. R&D, sales, marketing, product development, product marketing. How good are you at that? There are a number of people who have been promoted to fairly significant levels because they are fantastic people around liaison. They are the kind of people that marry organizations together, departments together, interdepartmental divisions together, and they do it really well. Yeah? So if some organizations are breaking down, if some organizations are not collaborating, if some organizations are not realizing the power of one and uniting under that, some of these organizations and people, actually more to the point, are going to come through, and there's going to be a great opportunity. And in an informational role, a manager is monitoring what's going on, but they're going above the weeds, all right? They're doing the operational, but they're looking at actually, are we following the strategy? Is this actually something that follows the objectives? That follows the mission, that follows the vision, that kind of thing? Are we doing that? Disseminator, disseminating information. And how do they do that? As a manager, you have to be careful about what you disseminate. Because remember, you're going to be responsible, even as a manager or as a leader, for people's motivations in an organization. So every word you say, and every word is really important here. I've kind of been in this management leadership game in the last kind of 20 years, and what I've learned over that time is not to be economical with terminology, but say what you intend to say, communicate what you need to communicate, not over-communicating, and not necessarily over-elaborating on things, but also just make sure you understand how the people may receive that information as well. So there's a lot of activity that goes in there. If you look at, let me just move into a piece of leadership, the amount of times chief executives and board members go through communications and the amount of times they're doing it. They've even sent 20 test emails, if that's the way they're going to communicate something, to their board to actually test whether that's all right or not, or to their press person, or to their relevant person who's actually responsible for communications, so someone like a head of PR or a head of media relations or something like that. They're constantly testing this, because once it goes, yeah? And recalling it, just doesn't happen, and it's not going to be a great thing to do at that time. So we must be as sure as we can be. We're also a spokesperson. Yeah? And one thing I would ask you all to do is, when you finish today, or indeed tomorrow, get onto YouTube. Look at a CEO. Look at a latest CEO interview in your industry. Maybe from one of your competitors, or maybe from one of your alliances, or indeed one of your partnerships. All right? And look at the way that they are conveying their organization. I remember, obviously, just recently with the Deepwater Horizon spill, the BP incident there in the Gulf of Mexico, that they got Svanberg, who was the guy who took over from Tom, who looked after he was the CEO of BP. And he was getting asked some very different, I'll send you the YouTube link actually, and you can look at the video yourselves. And he sat there getting hostile questions all the time. Remember, BP was in a position where, wow, anything it did, anywhere it turned, anything it touched was just wrong, okay? So there was a real rescue job that needed to be done, not only because of BP's literal incident in the Gulf of Mexico, but the people and what was kind of, going on in the leadership's mind. And when you look at Svanberg and the way he acted as a spokesperson for BP at the time, he had to come across as not someone who, was terribly excited about stuff, that kind of frivolous kind of, hey, because some big disaster happened. And if you could look at the way he communicated against all the hostile questions, he was calm, kind of relaxed, asking the question, responding to the question in a gentle manner, but also as well reflecting the hardship that he had caused both the environment and of course the people as well. And this was a pretty kind of telling piece. Folks, you will all be probably in a situation where you're going to have to handle a piece of negativity. And that piece of negativity, at the end of the day, you can turn into a positive. But it's the way you act, it's the way you behave, it's the way you look, it's the way you conduct your body language, and all these kind of small little things. It's the way you look at someone. Yeah? All these different things. And all these things come up to becoming a manager, and indeed more so being a leader. But you are a spokesperson first and foremost at that point. And think about what you're going to say. The big media organizations out there, the CNBCs, the Skies, the BBCs, all these organizations, the journalists, the media, all these folk, they're hanging on every single word a business leader is saying. Every single word. And then the implications of that will have an effect on the stock market sometimes. Yeah? Sometimes an attitude could be perceived as good, bad, indifferent, not doing enough, and things like that because of one person. It's a tall order. Yeah. Especially when you're talking about channels, one of the single biggest opportunities is that thing round the 7 Ps called the place. Because the place is how you distribute your products and services. And at the end of the day, if you're just identifying one area or 2 areas where you've always done it and that's where the income always comes through, etc., then are you the person that's actually going to create, if it doesn't exist already, an infrastructure, a channel infrastructure, a new infrastructure to do the attention, interest, desire, action thing, or indeed get more sales, get more revenues, get more profit? Are you doing that? Are you thinking about that? Or am I just going to keep going down the same channel, which is not wrong. The question is, are you thinking entrepreneurially? And then when we get down to this decisional role, and this is one of the toughest things, we have to make decisions. Whether you're a manager or whether you're a leader, you're in that same place, you're making a decision. And the question is quite simple here. Are you making the right decision? Now, sometimes, when I go and, sit on the boards of some of the, businesses and things like that I get involved with, I sit there and I think to myself, wow, these guys they're having a great debate. It's a good debate, one's talking about a different sales strategy, a different marketing strategy, all that kind of thing. It's not necessarily that they're all wrong. The question is the idea that will get through Is it the most logical? Is it the one back with all the evidence? Or is it because of the influence of the individual that's actually talking about that particular idea? Did it get through because of that? There are a number of things to consider there. Yeah? Something that we need to think about. But again, when we look individually, our ability to process and disseminate and do a number of these things, it kind of comes down to how we are as well. So we have to make decisions. But one of the things that, that I always think is, I listen to Radio 4 in the morning. So I used to listen to Radio 1 when I was at university. I was kind of hip or something like that. And then I got older and older and older. Then it went to Radio 2. Then it went to Radio 3. Now I'm at Radio 4. And I'll be listening to the shipping forecast sometime very shortly and really getting off on that, all right? But the whole idea there is when I look at these politicians that are debating every day about, that's the right thing to do. Miliband, that's the right thing to do. Cameron, that's the right thing to do. Clegg, that's the right thing to do. Vince Cable, that's the right thing to do. All these different things are going on all the time. It's not that all of them are wrong, but they're making decisions about what they think policy should be about. As long as, in the way the parliament and the democracy, all that kind of thing works, that they go with a kind of majority of people who kind of vote that way. And then obviously the decisions that they make is important because me and you will go out on election day and start voting for the people that we think are making the right decisions. When you are in management, nothing really changes there. You're still working on what you think is the right decision. I think as you go up between management and leadership, you'll kind of realize that you didn't always make the right decision. I was reading in a survey, and I'll try and locate it for you. 3 in 5 CEOs have been fired at some point in their career. Okay? So my maths is not too bad. I kind of take that as slightly over half, all right? Decisions that weren't right. Now, we could always say, it wasn't right for the business. It wasn't right for the economy. It wasn't the right time to make a decision like that. We can do that all day long, but the question is, we will live or die by the decisions that we make. And this is not a management thing. It's not a leadership thing. This is almost like a general thing, all right? So decisions are going to be important. So it's quite interesting, I think, when I look at my business life and I look at my personal life, how it actually trains you to think about things and then apply it in a kind of personal context as well. Most of the time that works. Sometimes it doesn't, all right? But the point is that this is a fantastic opportunity, I think, to learn from the way we process decisions. And on that, we have to do a number of things. Here are 3 of them from Mintzberg. I mean, you have to be a disturbance handler. There is stuff going on all the time. How are you going to manage it? It's almost like crisis management, yeah? And crisis management could look like there's a problem in the business. It could look like there's a problem with the revenues. There's a problem with the profitability. There's a problem with the people. There's a problem with the way we're addressing customers. There's a problem with the way we're reaching customers. So here, there's a disturbance. We have to manage that. We have to handle it. A resource allocator. You do this, you do this, you do that, you do this, all right? That is probably one of the single most hardest jobs kind of to do in management. Who do I give the job to? How do I allocate my organization? If you remember back in the first lecture, we talked about a variety of structures, didn't we? Different marketing structures. We talked about hybrid structures. We talked about meshed structures. We talked about organizational matrices, all these kind of things, which is great when it's scientific and all down there and, should be easy to apply. But then when you get down to it, you actually kind of realize that it's a little bit harder to do. There are numerous models that you can build and work with here. But ultimately, you get to see that it's not probably as easy as all that. But allocating the resources is important. I have a personal philosophy as well as a business philosophy. I think there's 3 things in life I think we need a good measure of: credibility, capability, and confidence. Credibility, capability, and confidence. Let's just have a think about that for a minute. It's good to have good levels of these things. Credibility. Do I believe you? Are you credible? Is your organizational credible? Is what you're doing a credible thing? Are you capable? Can you deliver everything that you say you can? Sometimes it's a bit like a CV, and you have people in front of you during an interview, and they're written on their letters that they're blah, 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 blah. And then when you start talking to them, you realize that maybe they were, and then sometimes maybe they weren't quite all those things that they said they were, or what they aspired to be. Come on to some of that a bit later. And confidence. I put it to you that maybe we're a little bit not as confident as we potentially could be. I think maybe probably need, maybe if I made a general assessment, a general comment, people could probably lift that bit up a little bit. Be proud of what you do. Be confident about what you've done. In decision making, one of the most important things is, am I spending all of my time defending what I do or promoting what I do? And promoting what my team does? What do I do? Because sometimes you have an opportunity to defend. Sometimes that's needed. Sometimes you will have a situation where, I'm not sure what your structure does. Tell me about it. So a little bit we get defensive. Naturally, cognitively, from a feeling perspective, we get a little, okay, we're actually doing this. And, actually, yeah, we are doing that, and we are doing this. Your credibility is starting to crumble. Your confidence is starting to crumble. Your capability looks like it's in question. But if we're very adamant that what we're doing is the right thing, we've got to go onto that question, what does your organization do, and promote what the organization does. Yeah. So a number of these things. The point I want to say about negotiation, anyone been on negotiation training here or negotiation learning of any kind? You know what, my advice to you, at some point in your careers, just get some time and do a day or a couple of days on negotiation, because it's a real art form. It is a real art form. Sometimes we are fantastic individuals. Sometimes we are really we're kind of good managers, but sometimes we kind of don't negotiate as hard or as effectively as we can do. You think about the amount of times maybe you concede things, either because you've actually lost the constructive argument, and that's fine, that happens, or maybe because you wanted to increase the peace and you couldn't be bothered, so you decided that, I'm not really going to challenge this, but it's just the way it is. Or sometimes you'll go out there thinking, I'm going to challenge that. I don't really, so I need to negotiate something here, all right? So we need to have a think about that. In my experience across, 6 of the leading IT businesses in the world, I think we could do a lot better with some of the negotiation skills, I think generally. That's an assessment, a general assessment, but I think we can do a lot more there.